distinct privilege of introducing to you all Professor Robert Sayler of UVA Law, who I might add has had a very successful and impressive career. Professor Sayler studied rhetoric and trial practice at Stanford University and later at Harvard Law School. He was a partner at the law firm of Covington and Burlington in Washington, D.C., where he specialized in complex cases, including product liability, antitrust, intellectual property, and insurance coverage lawsuits, seeking coverage for mass liabilities arising from asbestos, Exxon Valdez, Superfund, and other environmental cleanup costs. He is a member of the American College of Trial Lawyers, past chair of the American Bar Association Litigation Section, and was named the father of insurance coverage litigation by Chambers International. He has been listed by the National Law Journal as one of the 100 most influential lawyers, one of the top 10 DC litigators by American Lawyer, and Commercial Prosecutor of the Year by the International Commercial Journal. In 1995, he was appointed the John Ewald Chair at the University of Virginia School of Law, where he teaches trial rhetoric and oral communications. Please join me in welcoming Professor Robert Sayler.
Well, that tells you what I'm going to talk about. The campaign so far of 2012. I mostly will talk about the primary, which will end on the Republican side apparently today. But I'll talk a little bit about where we are in the general. Well, it's been an amazing campaign, just amazing. And I want to explain all the reasons it has been. And the rhetoric of what's going on, which is, I'm a little preoccupied with the subject, it is something I've studied my whole life. But without any speech making, let's just start out right here as kind of illustrative of what's going on.
Do you think that Republicans ought to buck the public option and really move forward to completely change Medicare, turn it into a voucher program where you give seniors some premium support and so that they can go out and buy private insurance?
I don't think right-wing social engineering is any more desirable than left-wing social engineering. I don't think imposing radical change from the right to the left is a very good way for a free society to operate. I think we need a national conversation to get to a better Medicare system with more choices for seniors.
That's what he said on a Sunday morning, Meet the Press. 40 million people heard that answer. He was responding to a proposal that had been put out by Congressman Ryan. And you heard it. No social engineering from either side. He told 40 million. By Tuesday morning, he went on a radio show, again, public radio show.
And so let me say on the record, any ad which quotes what I said on Sunday is a falsehood.
Not sure it's ever happened. Honest to God, think of all the things you've heard. Has anybody ever made a serious statement on one day on national TV and 2 days later said, if everybody, I'm doing it now, I'm showing it, I'm quoting it, I'm engaged in a falsehood for quoting it. Wow. That turns a rhetorician's head around about 500 times. The campaign has been an amazing laboratory to go way back to one of the classic struggles in my field, rhetoric, between Aristotle, the student, and Plato, his mentor and teacher. Dear friend, until the last 10 years. And a battle over rhetoric broke out, and they didn't speak. They died angry at each other. That's a great laboratory to go right into the middle of what they were fighting about. Is rhetoric to be exalted? Is it a good thing? Or is it a really bad thing? Plato, good thing. Aristotle. The 2012 primary, who won? Between those two titans, giants of philosophy and rhetoric, who won? Because they took diametrically opposed positions on whether rhetoric is worth the candle or worse than that, dangerous. The Plato view. Plato was a great logician and mathematician. He was comfortable in things that could be proved, could be written down, could be established. Brilliant guy. Aristotle, also brilliant, came from another viewpoint. Here's Plato's work. He said, for the most part, rhetoric, and he was both of them mostly talking about oral rhetoric. Rhetoric is not confined to oral, but that's what we usually mean. It's not, it's puff. It doesn't have any rigor to it. It's just fluff with the paper. If you can't write it down and prove it, it must not be true. That's the Plato view. Comfortable in math, comfortable in science, comfortable in theorem, in writing. He says, if you're going to let people just get up and talk, it's going to necessarily seduce in the direction of distortion. It could happen. He said, what about the bad man, Aristotle? If you train people to be effective persuaders, what if that effective persuader is persuading people unfairly? Cheap shot, the wrong direction. What do you do with the bad man? And what do you do with the bad audience? Plato was very dubious about whether an audience was likely to care enough to do their homework. So a lot of them are not going to be well educated, but even the well educated, I'm worried that they won't be able to parse what is said to them. They'll just buy it. That's the Plato view. Mob psychology could break out. Tribal psychology. I'm going to go and scream with these people just because they're over here screaming. I care more to be in the tribe than what is being said. It may sound familiar to some of you. That's the view. Aristotle said not so fast. We make most governmental decisions out here in the square in Athens. We've got to be able to talk. And a lot of what matters to us is not subject to being proved by theorems. It's probabilities, common sense, how you get along with your family. You've got to be able to communicate effectively and orally, because so much doesn't lend itself to writing down in a document. So we need to get good at it. I'm not saying yay for bad men or bad audiences. I'm saying if done right and over time, the fairer and better rhetoric will prevail, but there will be blinks. That's what you got to take. That's the price of the deal. Let's teach good rhetoric. Let's learn. So he established an academy, and for years taught folks like you to learn to be effective, careful, thoughtful rhetoricians. But Plato didn't like what Aristotle was doing, and he crushed Aristotle. And Aristotle's academy died. Plato won the battle. And for 1,000 years, the teaching of rhetoric was a dead end. Plato defeated Aristotle. Let's do it. There's the battle. I say 2012 was an amazing occasion to look at. The primary campaign was literally unprecedented. You hear people say that all the time. This one was. You had 9 reasonably serious candidates from time to time. Most of them were number 1. Remember? That never happened before. Shifts in the top spots, all over the place. One week one person be up, the next week another person be up. That didn't happen before. There was more money spent on the Republican primaries this year than all other primaries ever combined. That's never happened before by definition. Negative ads galore. They did a study about the ads in Florida, this 95% of the Governor Romney's ads, and he agrees, were negative. That's kind of different. Aristotle, the guy who said over time, the positive is going to sell. You got to be negative sometimes, you got to rebut. But the positive is more moving, it's more powerful. People tire of the negative. And we're going to see how tired people do or don't get between now and early November. Here was the most amazing thing about that primary. It is no surprise that Democrats and the left said that's, all those people are just clowns, we don't like what they're saying, they're stating, or that always happens from the party not campaigning, right? That's no surprise. But here's the surprise. From the far right and the middle right came a chorus of condemnation, embarrassed by what was going on. Now, that's a pretty good laundry list of the leading Republican thinkers, right? They all wrote passionately, this primary campaign has been a disaster for the conservative cause and for the Republican Party, everyone. No words were minced by the right wing attacking what the Republican candidate had done. Barbara Bush, worst campaign of my life, my entire life. Senator McCain, this whole thing's been a great tragedy. George Will, it must have hurt him to write it. The campaign demonstrates that neither leading candidate, by then we were down to Romney and Sayler, neither's qualified to be president. George Will, basically saying therefore the president has to be reelected, but these two can't do it. That's hard for George Will to write. Charles Krauthammer, this thing's been a circus show. He wrote the primary campaign. Scarborough, there's no way Romney can win after that primary. That is tough talk. It's tougher probably than almost any I've ever done. It's coming from the right. It's coming from the conservative. You're hurting. Never ever happened before during a primary. And so I want to talk mostly the analytical part of what I want to talk about is what went wrong and will it be fixed? There's time. It probably will be. Most of us in my field, when analyzing a speaker, the rhetoric of the speaker, the power of the speaker, the effectiveness, follow Aristotle's analysis, frankly. We all go back to it. You're going to hear us and me today talking about Aristotle's great trilogy. And I've added one on my own. It's a trilogy plus one of how to think about analyzing a speaker. You've probably heard this, but you've noticed ethos, pathos, logos. That's the ball game of Aristotelian rhetoric. Ethos is two things. Trust me, I'm not going to mislead you. I am a credible person. I've done my homework. I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to lie. You better win that one. That's the biggest part of ethos. No, that's half. The other half of ethos, and this is very underappreciated in the world, like me. If you don't like me right now, or think that I don't know what you're talking about, I'm dead. I will never get a juror back, and I spent 35 years in jury trial work. I'll never get a juror back. But the initial impression is, I don't trust that person, or I can't stand that person. That's ethos. It's number one in Aristotelian rhetoric because it ought to be. Nothing is more important. When I trust this person, I like this person. And the reverse is devastating. Just pathos. The ability to reach a normal level of dealing with the human emotions. We are all human. We are all emotional. Aristotle was mostly concerned about misusing pathos. He was mostly worried about the speaker who says it too much, too often, relies on emotion over and over again, so that you get the idea that the speaker's trying to rip the heartstrings. You've all heard speakers say something like that. And if you think that, there goes ethos. There went all that credibility that the speaker had. His second concern with over or misusing pathos was what if the audience gets the impression that your mind has simply been overwhelmed by, overcome by your emotion, your heart. That's Governor Dean screaming out after he lost Iowa. We're going to take back Kansas and Nebraska and Iowa. Remember that? Campaign's death the next morning. That was ballgame. Overused, misused. My wife called and I didn't even see it. And said, did you see it? No, he's done. Why? Because of that. And she actually used the phrase that night that was in the papers the next day, do you want that man's finger on the black nuclear pipe? Who can give that? He was really screaming and yelling, throwing his hands around. And it was even misuse of that. Logos. The ability to engage the mind. We again underestimate the degree to which all of us, from the cab driver to the PhD, care about logic. But Aristotle said you better make it clear and simple. People love to hear logic that they can understand. It'll mean a lot to them. Therefore, he came up with the simplest thing of all, the syllogism. Major premise, minor premise, conclusion. Keep it clean, keep it clear. People understand that if A is right, B probably follows. And I'll guarantee you, jurors understand inconsistencies. You can say in closing argument, their number one witness basically said after cross-examination, X. Their second most important witness after cross-examination fundamentally said, Y. They are either both wrong or one has to be. Those two propositions cannot live in the same universe. You can hear a pin drop when they're explaining contradictions to almost anybody. We care about logic. Delivery, yeah. Their academy, 2/3 of every day at Aristotle's academy was dealing with delivery. Voice, cadence, pausing, gestures, when to move, how to wean oneself from those. Almost the cardinal sin in the Aristotelian rhetoric. That's what they did all day, every day, till Plato smashed the academy. I forgot one thing about I come out on the Aristotle side, obviously, and I forgot one reason. A professor brought me in just last week, an honest-to-God quote from Aristotle, my guy, who actually wrote, "The bald man is not therefore mutilated." That's my guy. That guy's got it. How can you get any smarter than that for a fellow who's been a little defensive about that for 70 years? We were both bald. So there, another good point. I want to now go through the main contenders. What happened? We're down to one, and I'll come back to Romney, and we'll go head to head, Romney and the president, in a minute. But let's talk about those that fell away from the Republican race. And just look for a minute at what they did that, to me, to my eyes, my ears, were setting back their case rhetorically and got them by the end of the day. Senator Santorum.
So learn to say that people of faith have no role in the public square? You bet that makes you throw up. What kind of country do we live in that says only people of non-faith can come in the public square and make their case? That makes me throw up.
He's talking about John Kennedy's speech to the Catholic hierarchy in Houston, in which he went down and courageously said, "I will be the President of the United States. The Pope will not be. I am a Catholic. I believe in my church, but I am going to run the country the best way I can. There will be no division between church and state." A very courageous and wonderful speech. He didn't say a word about taking religion out of your life completely. My gosh, the guy went to Mass 3 days a week. Completely distorted. Completely, and every reading person, remember, he's a Catholic himself. A reason he's got a chance is that Kennedy proved we could elect again. And he had to make that speech. For Kennedy only won by 0.05%, right? That was a pivotal and huge, wonderful speech. And it makes him throw up. He later said his wife got after him a little bit. Maybe it was a little overboard. Never got pathos from crazy. How about this one?
President Obama once said he wants everybody in America to go to college. What a snob.
For people paying attention to the rhetoric, that's not what the president said in his State of the Union speech. He said, "We're learning, all the statistics show us, that some education beyond high school will be a junior college." be it mechanic school, some education is a better way, a clearer path to getting a job, and I want to make it more affordable. That's what he said. And here comes that attack. Nobody's going to take that seriously if they heard the speech. He himself has 9 years of graduate education sent to him. Only one child old enough to go to college, and by golly, he sent her to college. Because he went on to say college destroys people. It poisons their mind. The same speech. Come on, darn it. At some point, make your case, but make the right case. That's not a good contraception.
One of the things I will talk about that the new president has talked about before is I think the dangers of contraception. The whole sexual liberty idea. Many in the Christian faith have said, well, that's okay. You know, contraception's okay. It's not okay because it's a license to do things in the sexual realm that is counter to how things are supposed.
You need to go there to run for president. That bridge too far. You got 98% of even Catholic ones. The bold thing to do use contraception. Maybe 99% of that. It's bad. Why do you need to go there? Unless you are pretending to some knowledge that none of the rest of us have, including the 98%. It just sounds so sanctimonious and dogmatic, and people got after it big time for all those kinds of things. The problem, therefore, was pathos run amok. Pathos problem. Overthinking. Too emotional. Delivery, I don't know if you all saw this one. He was challenged
Pick any other Republican in the country.
near the end of the campaign.
He is the worst Republican in the country to put up against Barack Obama.
After the speech, New York Times reporter Jess Elliott asked Santorum about those comments. Santorum quickly became angry over the line of questioning.
You said that Obama is the worst Republican in the country. Is that true?
What speech did you listen to?
Right there. That's right. He said he's the worst
Stop
Republican.
lying. I said he was the worst Republican to run on the issue of Obamacare, and that's what I was talking about. I have said uniquely, for every speech I give, I say he is uniquely disqualified to run against Barack Obama on the issue of health care. Would you guys quit distorting what I'm saying?
You think he's the worst Republican to
To
run
run
on
against
this issue?
Barack Obama on the issue of health care because he fashioned the blueprint. I've been saying it in every speech. Quit distorting my words. If I see it, it's bull. Come on, man. What are you doing?
Yeah, he said that again on national TV, just minutes after. His direct quote was, he's the worst Republican in the country to run against Obama. The New York Times guy was quoting him exactly. And once again, he has to say, you're lying, quoting him exactly. And swear, this very religious man. Swear. I'm not picking up anything that other people haven't picked up on this subject. That you knew that case was probably going to have trouble. And it did. That's not helping you. Darn it to the rest of us. Mainline Protestantism is in shambles, going for the war of Christianity. That's paying me with a broad brush right there. It's paying a lot of people. The whole Protestant part of our Christian religion is in shambles. Who is he? I don't know. Angry, sanctimonious. This is just my judgment. I'm quoting a lot of people that are picking up on the same thing as what happened. You go to Gingrich. How about this one? He really said this about my profession. This.
Things you say is that if you don't like what a court has done, that Congress should subpoena the judge and bring him before Congress and hold a congressional hearing. Some people say that's unconstitutional, but I'll let that go for a minute. I just want to ask you from a practical standpoint, how would you enforce that? Would you send the Capitol Police down to arrest him if you had to?
Or you'd instruct the Justice Department to send the U.S. Marshal.
Here he's talking about letting the 9% approval of Congress, right, it's at 9, it goes between 9 and 10, be able to overrule court decisions, subpoena the judges, fired judges and reversed their decisions. What in the world Constitution is he reading about the three branches? The thing that Hamilton wrote about and Jefferson and Madison was their worry was the judicial branch might be too weak. It didn't have guns. It didn't have money. We had to protect the judicial branch. And he wants Congress to be able to subpoena people, fire them, reverse their decision. What in the world does that leave to the judiciary? Because this was that offended a lot of us big time. Why go there? How about this?
By the end of my second term, we will have the first permanent base on the moon, and it will be American.
Just took a course up Observatory Hill. A tremendous scientist who complained about the fact that we're having to cut way back on the amount of money spent on space, with the idea that we had the ability to build anything like that on the moon, or the moon, is the fifth order of postulates. I asked him that exact question. There are the scientists in the world who thinks, he said, we're able to build a company or could afford it. Why go there? Why go there with, say, Aristotle? Darn it, you're making a big mistake. Athos, Logos, Knowledge. The Vaticans end up clobbering the courts. Athos, this pipe dream that we're going to have a colony on the moon. There he went. We come to the next again. Up at first, Governor Barry, you know this moment.
It balances the budget in 2020. It does the things to the regulatory climate that has to happen. And I will tell you, it's three agencies of government when I get there that are gone. Commerce, education, and the, what's the third one there? Let's see. Oh, fine. Okay. So commerce, education, and the EPA? EPA. There you go. No,
Seriously? Is EPA the one you were talking about?
No, sir. No, sir. We're talking about the agencies of government. EPA needs to be rebuilt.
But you
no
can't.
doubt about
so you
that.
can't name the third one?
The third agency of government,
Yeah.
I would do away with the education, commerce, and let's see. I can't. The third one I can't. Sorry. Oops.
What about the EPA and the
That's the oops moment that you heard about. And it was really a twofer because he couldn't think of the first and somebody fed him EPA. And in an effort to get out of his box said, yeah, it's that one. But then the commentator picked it up and said, you don't mean that, do you? Oh, no, I actually don't. Let me try again to come up. He didn't mean EPA. That was a big gaffe on his part. And he grabbed it as a life rope because he couldn't think of it. That's not very good rhetorical either. Boy, if you're going to take down three big hunks of this government, you better know they are. At least when you're given three chances to remember. Here was a chance he could have soared in the debate against Governor Romney of inconsistencies. He'd been talking about inconsistencies from his Massachusetts performance to the campaign, but nobody really nailed it. Here was his chance to make clear, you first were this, you've been this. Look at what he did.
I think Americans just don't know sometimes which Mitt Romney they're dealing with. Is it the Mitt Romney that was on the side of against the Second Amendment before he was for the Second Amendment? Was before he was before these social programs from the standpoint of he was for standing up for Roe versus Wade, before he was against Roe versus Wade? He was for race to the top. He's for Obamacare, and now he's against it. I mean, we'll wait until tomorrow and see which Mitt Romney we're really talking to tonight.
Governor Romney?
You just don't have to be hypercritical to hear that, and I did look, and ask yourself, is that person ready to be president of the United States? He's got his home run right there, and he garbles it so badly that people are laughing. It's time to be big, and he wasn't. Yeah.
The question to ask is that person Trump?
Well, perfect question, because watch this. New Hampshire speech.
Gold is good. If you got any in the backyard, because, you know, if they print any more money over there in Washington, the gold's going to be good. Mine's cut, balance, and growth. Get that. Yeah. It's pretty simple, actually. Or you can stay in the old system that's out there. And then, Senator, you know, the ones that want to stay in the old system, pay the lawyers, pay the accountants, all that money's gone. Or that. 20% flat tax, put it on there, take your deductions off, send it in. Even Tim Geithner could get his taxes in on time with this, I'm telling you. That little plan that I just shared with you doesn't force the Granite State to expand your tax footprint. You know what I mean? Like 9% expansion.
That answers your question. That certainly answers the question about that speech. I did say it. You asked it. Yeah.
But was he drunk?
Had to be. Just had to be. It was after dinner. And that, I just picked out a minute and a half of it. The whole thing was I think everybody in the country that watched it asked your question. I'm not in a position to say I know anything about that. I just know what I saw. And that isn't very presidential. So they're confused, befuddled. There went another candidate. Okay. This one, in my opinion, takes the cake. There's a lot of candidates here, and I got another one coming behind her that may be the winner. But this is close. Come on. Think about this statement.
We know there was slavery that was still tolerated when the nation began. We know that was an evil, and it was a scourge and a blot and a stain upon our history. But we also know that the very founders that wrote those documents worked tirelessly until slavery was no more in the United States. And I think it is high time that we recognize the contribution of our forebears who worked tirelessly. Men like John Quincy Adams, who would not rest until slavery was extinguished in the country.
I got a 9-year-old grandson that I asked about that. Look, there was this little dust up in 1860, right? We had Abraham Lincoln. She must have been to Mount Vernon and Monticello and seen the slaves. It's in the Constitution. They get 3/5 of the vote. We count them in the Constitution. The one thing you have to know about the Founding Fathers is they were awesome. But boy, they didn't get rid of slavery. She finally comes up with John II when she's coming up with the name John Quincy Adams. He was a founding baby, for starters. He wasn't a founding father. And second, he didn't extinguish slavery. You darn well know it didn't happen until 1862, maybe the Emancipation Proclamation. Pretty good job, 1864. Presidential candidate, the United States president, and to run on a platform of the Constitution is the most important document ever written, probably is. And then say the Founding Fathers got rid of it. No, that's what they didn't do. A lot of great, not that. There went another one. Logos calamity. All right, this is pretty good. The great Herman, we had just succeeded in the Libya mission. He's asked this question. We didn't have to lose an ounce of blood. Remember how that thing worked? It worked pretty well. The Allies did most of the hard work. We did the bombing. And it worked. There's a lot of chatter on both sides. We should have bombed the heck out of Libya or done nothing. darn, the middle course worked pretty well. So a newspaper columnist on air asked him, how about Libya? What'd you think about that? Here's what he did. Herman K.
So you agree with President Obama on Libya or not?
Okay, Libya. President Obama supported the uprising, correct? President Obama called for the removal of Gaddafi. Just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing before I say, yes, I agree. I know I didn't agree. I do not agree with the way he handled it for the following reason. No, that's a different one. I gotta go back and see.
That's one of the most important foreign affairs matter that had come up during the primary. And he didn't know what country it was. He didn't know anything. Could have got it wrong, confused with some other country. No, that's another. I'll never understand this thing. This was their first major ad. Ads are also rhetoric, by the way. Of course, it's one way we do our rhetoric. I gotta go back to that. Come on ahead. I'm gonna get it. I guarantee it. We'll do that. And that. There you go.
Mark Bloch here.
Campaign managers.
Since January, I've had the privilege of being the Chief of Staff to Herman Cain and the Chief Operating Officer of the Friends of Herman Cain. Tomorrow is one day closer to the White House. I really believe that Herman Cain will put United back in the United States of America. And if I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be here. We run a campaign like nobody's ever seen. But then, America's never seen a candidate like Herman Cain. We need you to get involved because together we can do this. We can take this country back.
Waiting for that smile almost forever. And it was before any of the sex stuff came out. But if that wasn't a salacious smile, there won't be a smile. I've never seen one. And then you throw smoke in there. In a country that's pledged to try to limit the amount of smoke. And the campaign made what vote is that getting? Come on, at some point you got to get tough on these guys and play earth. How is it winning anything? Might it lose something? Those are the questions. What have you just seen that is going to get anybody anything? But it's going to set the cases back. Worst thing you can do in rhetoric is make a mistake and go backwards. It's bad enough not to go forward. It's terrible to go backwards. God knows how they did it all. The other three seem to be, I guess, just too much of a very old guy. His positions were very effective to some, but not to the majority. It was always this pocket, and they liked the guy a lot. There's nothing evil with the guy at all. It's just a narrow band, and he couldn't come out of the narrow band. Seemed to be too academic, didn't he? I know you all know as much as I do about why. That's a bright guy. That's an able guy. Never got up there. And to my mind, that's what I call the rhetorical trifecta. It's hard for me to say anything good about it. Those pathos are one of those, so I won't try. That was the primary. Who won? Whose views were borne out? And I think that both of them. Plato said, I told you so. I was afraid of rhetoric. All kinds of wild things would go on. People would fall for one candidate than the other. You'd get some mob psychology going. Factually incorrect. Cheap stuff might happen. Plato's got to be saying it's right. Aristotle, no, I'm not hearing it that way. What that all tells me is that effective advocacy is a serious academic discipline. It needs to be thought about. It needs to be studied. And when done right, it's very important that it be done right when we elect our leaders. And he would point out the most extreme views, some of which we just see fell out. Yeah.
Didn't it sort of make Romney look like the stable guy, the inevitable stable guy?
I'm going there, of course, right now. Yes, the others fell out because Romney didn't do any of those things. He did do something, and he brought some baggage with him. That's what I'm going to talk about next. So what comes next? Here it really is interesting. Really interesting. New battleground. Here are a bunch of new books. Fabulous new books. I encourage all to read all of them. They don't all agree. They're all about the psychology of research. Every one of them. My favorite one's written by a UVA psychology professor. Jonathan. And he starts off with the key point. He has an analogy on page 1. The mind is divided like a rider, by which he means our reason, on an elephant, our gut feelings. And the rider's job is merely to serve the elephant. Boy, you have no idea how many studies are out there. These are meta-studies analyzing thousands of studies that come to the conclusion that when talking about really big things, electing a president, very big matters that might involve the heart, they really involve the gut, big time. And the gut is going to control so often how we think. And it is too glib. Aristotle didn't have all these studies. He was much more in the logos and ethos world than pathos, gut, emotion. Now these guys are saying, wait a minute, there's no emotion to this game of who we're going to decide, I guess even who we marry, but certainly who we're going to pick for president. The primary was just, I called it an elephant minuet, vying to get to the same part of the gut. Romney saying I'm the most seriously conservative. They were all battling to get to the conservative gut, right? Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But that was a battle between gradations on the gut, about the gut. It's going to be a new ballgame, starting right now. Whole new ballgame. Now we're going to have, clearly, a battle of the gut. Visceral feeling, competing visceral feelings. And I don't know why that isn't progressing. Come on, we've got to go there. Advance it there. Just the. Here's the problem. If people are going to think and vote on the basis of their gut feeling, these books all say it's almost impossible to change a strong gut feeling. And that for the most part, if you try, you're going to entrench the gut feeling all the more. They're that strong. They're that powerful. And that indeed people that have these gut feelings are going to tend to have even differing information processing mechanisms. They're going to hear things. They're going to hear different words. They're going to hear different facts. Put them together in various ways. I just made this up. But think about things you're hearing about in the campaign. The blue topics. Boy, one side, that's what hard work, it's deserved. That's a gut feeling about wealth, great. Over here, no, it's disproportionate. Sometimes it's inherited. Sometimes you get there by shady practice. Pick Indians, I just made them up. Gun regulation. No, any regulations, camel's nose under the tent. You regulate assault weapons, the next thing you know, they'll take away bees. Right? Other side saying, wow, we got to regulate guns. Guns to kill people. Violence. All those. Business regulations, stifles innovation, useless paperwork. That's gut stuff that people feel so strongly about. You're not going to shake them. Over here, how about the BP oil problem? How about JP Morgan? How about the mining disasters that have killed a lot of people? How about the financial meltdown? People are just passing like ships in the night. But they're getting deeply. Most, let's say 80%, are divided into two 40% camps. that really are not going to shake each other. It's now worth the gut campaign. You got to see who's going to win that. Plato would say, gosh darn it, I thought that's what rhetoric was going to come down to. Mostly guts, a lot of fast and loose with facts. But I come back here and start. I still think Aristotelian analysis will be decisive. Ethos will loom large. Drew Weston, one of the authors up there, wrote this. That's after studying, I've done 250 studies, a meta study of 250 others. Look at that, he's analyzed every presidential election and concluded that the gut level reaction to a candidate is 3 times as powerful as the reasons people give for a candidate. They vote for the person who elicits the right feelings, not who gives the best argument. That upsets those of us in academia. We wish it wasn't that big a deal, but it is. That's what all those first 4 books say. And Weston is the god of analyzing political campaign and why various people are going to law. I think he's right. Nothing has proved more accurate than this gut. Who do you like the best? Who don't you like? And picking our president. These guys, ethics guys, these guys were great on ethos. Reagan, everybody liked Reagan. Nice guy. Very nice. Huge on ethos. Ethos A+. Eisenhower, hero of the war. Humble, pleasant, campaign button. I like that. Well, people did. John Kennedy, just this fabulous orator for one thing, classy, very handsome, all kinds of people just fell for John Kennedy. I'm not saying they shouldn't have, but boy, did he have a lot of this, I just like the guy. Clinton, an awful lot of I just like the guy. Most people voted for him probably couldn't give a single reason of liking that he was better than Nixon. Just like him. Obama probably won it. He came out of, you know, I've been in the Senate 5 years when he started running. Probably, yes, we can. Very big for Obama. And he's got a lot of charm. Harry Truman beats Dewey. This guy was way behind, but he runs around the country on the caboose of the train. Give him hell, Harris. Overtook him very well. He was very well supported. Tom Dewey beat him in the last couple of days. People like some of the guys. Those guys? Dewey, way too Wall Street. Same speech 38 straight times. Dukakis couldn't answer that question. So what do you do? A kid who's just been raped and murdered. Do you still oppose the death penalty in all cases? Answered the question, talking about drugs. Never mentioned her name. There went that campaign. Dean screaming and yelling. Bad on ethos. Kerry thought to be just too pedantic, couldn't deliver a powerful speech. Gore, same thing, very rigid. He got a lot better. His movie Inconvenient Truth is a lot more personable. And he exudes more likability, ethos. McCain often stuck on it, quoting mostly reading his stuff. That's a pretty good case for Drew Weston's thesis. And therefore made a difference. It's going to come down by 1 or 2 points to who more people just point like. So let's look at ethos for a second. 1, the likability factor. The governor has a problem that he had a tough campaign. And I'm going to be talking about him more than the president, because the president's campaign, when he started, the governor had to run against all those 8 other people and had to take an awful lot of positions day after day after day. And he made some mistakes. Some walkouts. They did more mistakes. That people are not going to forget. The Democrats are not going to let them forget. Like that one.
This feels good, being back in Michigan. You know, the trees are the right height. The streets are just right. I like the fact that most of the cars I see are Detroit-made automobiles. I drove a Mustang and a Chevy pickup truck. Ann drives a couple of Cadillacs, actually.
What vote do you pick up? I say that rather than we're very faithful to the American car industry. My father was president of one. I've always driven. We both have always driven American cars. Why do you go cut the camera? The guy with $250 million. How about that? Come on, how about that?
I'm not concerned about the very poor. We have a safety net there. If it needs a repair, I'll fix it. I'm not.
How can you let that sentence come out of your mouth? President of the United States, I'm not concerned about the very poor. Maybe he doesn't decide that we do have a safety net, or what it does, or if it needs to be fixed, or how to fix it. He says there may be a safety net. He's got to do better, and he will. He will do better than that. Right now, that's a bad sentence. The third, you're going to see on TV a lot. Probably already have. That's part of the baggage. Very good. This thing ain't working again. There it is. Don't know it. That one. I don't know what it is.
I like being able to fire people and provide services to me. If someone doesn't give me the good service I need, I want to say, that I'm going to go get someone else to provide that service.
Coming out of the Bain Capital experience, $250 million for the asset. It's just so easy to say that. Why don't you say that? That's just cementing the gut feeling on the other side, even if that's not a true characterization of the way you really do it. Yeah, you really would get great by firing a bunch of people. I mean, look at how we. Then people challenge you. All those gaps. Fox News challenge you. What are you doing? Look at the way he defended it.
Point to things like you've been making some gaps, Governor. You talking about people ask you about football. You talk about how you know the NFL owners. They ask you about NASCAR. You talk about how you know some racing owners. You talk about Ann's 2 Cadillacs, and people say he can't relate. He's so rich. He can't relate to the rest of us. Why do you keep doing that?
Megan, guess what? I made a lot of money. I've been very successful. I'm not going to apologize.
There are some in the middle who are going to pay some attention to that, probably, and all those are going to be trumpeted for the next 4 months, big time. Then came his apology. I wrote an article about it, was in our local paper. I don't think the apology about what happened to the high school kid was handled well. At first they denied that it happened, and 5 people on the record said, yes, it did. We were there, and it haunted us. We cut off the kids. Remember that? They denied it at first, and they said maybe. Then he finally says, if I offended anybody, blaming it on the audience, not himself, then I apologize. Not welcome. And that's going to come. The president, again, I don't have that much yet, but I'm still collecting this, and I'm not going to go with this. I am writing a book about this. I can't go with the final until the election's over. One thing that bothers me is he does this all the time. Watch this.
Thank you, everybody. Today I am proud to announce the newest members of my national security team. Co-chairman of my intelligence advisory board. By my DNI, Director of National Intelligence.
He constantly describes everybody that works in the administration. He hasn't yet said my Secretary of State. That would not go over very well. Call Hillary Clinton. I'm serious about this. That is a dumb thing to do rhetorically. It's my this, my this, my this. Everybody knows there is a knock on the president for being cocksure, arrogant, right? It's out there. Doesn't it just be that? Isn't it so easy to say our or the Secretary of Interior rather than mine? Well, I've tried to get that message through, and I can't get it through. That drives me. And on likability engaging, he is perceived sometimes as just too detached, too cool. When he's on, he's pretty fiery. Yes, we can. But so often, particularly during the budget battle last summer, awfully calm and quiet, too cool to move. I think it hurts him. Credibility, the second piece of ethos. Believable, likable, just did likable. Just Pinocchio issue. I think you're really going to see, watch this carefully. I think this is going to be all over the TV about October.
If we keep talking about the economy, we're going to lose.
That's his first big
The ad makes it seem like President Obama said he'd lose if he kept talking about the economy. But let's take a look at what he actually said.
If we keep talking about the economy, we're going to lose.
The ad makes it seem like President Obama said he'd lose if he kept talking about the economy. But let's take a look at what he actually said.
Senator McCain's campaign actually said, and I quote, "If we keep talking about the economy, we're going to lose."
All they did, that was their first big act, was take a big scissors and cut out. McCain's campaign says 4 years ago, if we talk about it, they cut that out. So that you got Obama saying it now about Obama's position. You can't get any worse at distorting. That turns it exactly upside down. And Romney was asked about it, and he said it didn't bother him. It's a big, tough world. Osama, would you go after Osama and the GM bankruptcy? You're going to see this just constantly the next couple of months.
Mitt Romney has a new campaign tactic, taking President Obama's successes and saying that he would have done the same thing, even though Mitt Romney is already on record saying that he wouldn't. Here was Romney trying out the new tactic last week.
You want to give me the order, Governor? Even Jimmy Carter would have given that order.
Of course, that's the same Mitt Romney who said this in 2007 when he was running for president.
I do not concur in the words of Barack Obama in a plan to enter an ally of ours in their country in a manner complete with bombing and so forth.
And now the same Mitt Romney who opposed President Obama's intervention that saved the American automobile industry, that same Mitt Romney says not that he would have done the same thing, but that he actually did himself save the auto industry.
My own view, by the way, was that the auto companies needed to go through bankruptcy before government help. And frankly, that's finally what the president did. He finally took them through bankruptcy. That was the right course I argued for from the very beginning. I pushed the idea of a managed bankruptcy. And finally, when that was done and help was given, the companies got back on their feet. So I'll take a lot of credit for the fact that this industry's come back.
Mitt Romney taking a lot of credit for saving the auto industry came as a shock to Mitt Romney supporters. Here's how Senator John McCain reacted. Romney said that he was responsible for the auto bailout? Asked Senator John McCain in disbelief. I'd have to look at the context of his remarks. The Obama re-election campaign today was happy to quickly provide that context.
2008, you said, and I'm quoting, we should let Detroit go bankrupt.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. Let Detroit go bankrupt. Were there some institutions that should not have been bailed out? Absolutely. Should they have used the funds to bail out General Motors and Chrysler? No. You said, quote, if General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler get the bailout that their chief executives asked for yesterday, you can kiss the American automotive industry goodbye.
You said back in 2008, if you write a check, they're going to go out of business.
If you write a check, they're going to go out of business.
Let Detroit go bankrupt.
Let Detroit go bankrupt.
The response to Rush calling the Catholic law student George a slut and demanding her sex tape. Remember that? His answer, his comment to that was, those weren't the words I would use. We're going to hear about that. I'd go for that's where he's saying that. You can't do any worse. He socialized after for 6 months. They've taken position after position after position that are contrary to the administration. Pretty far out, frankly, to the right. And he's asked, his number one campaign advisor is asked, how are you going to live with all those things that are on the record that I've just been showing? And he said this.
Is there a concern that the pressure from Santorum and Gingrich might force the governor to tack so far to the right it would hurt him with moderate voters in the general election?
Well, I think you hit a reset button for the fall campaign. Everything changes. It's almost like an Etch-a-Sketch. You can kind of shake it up and we start all over again.
Ethos, trust me, I won't mislead you. But if I take some positions over here, I get a mulligan. and I get to start over again. There are only so many ways you can mess up this rhetoric stuff. That's very close. We can do all the rest very quickly. The president on credibility, he's waffling on gay marriage. Is it a right? If it is, it should be a constitutional right, a constitutional amendment, or do you leave it to the states? He's messing with that. It took him a long time to decide that he was in favor of gay marriage. Long time. A little waffling there. Now waffling on how big a deal is it. And they're caught on that, and there's a problem going on. Mixed messages on venture capital. First, they were just going to attack it. One person did, Cory Booker, just attacked, or various people attacked it as just vulture capitalism, as actually Duke said. And then they're kind of trying to back off. But Cory Booker goes on Meet the Press and says, don't take on whole capital. And it's an important engine of the business. What are you doing? They're kind of messing with it. Seems to me, they should say, venture capitalism is an important engine of business. It sometimes does good things, like everything else it sometimes fails. Our only hope is that 25 years in that business does not equip a person to deal with environmental problems and welfare and all of the things a president has to deal with. It has nothing to do with it. It seems to me that's where you go. They're kind of caught, kind of taking both positions all at once. That's a problem. Pathos initially favors Romney because these books say conservatives respond more enthusiastically to broader popular appeals. That's what those books are all about. Conservatives start with an advantage there, but watch out for the bridge too far attacks. He stood up the other day and said the president's promised he spent too much time at Harvard. Well, Romney has a law degree and a business degree at Harvard. He go 2 more years. Why do you go there? Dang it. Get your point. And I warn under pathos surrogates can mesh up. That those folks that started to run the campaign, one of the super PAC, calling the president a metrosexual black Lincoln, they pulled back, but it's out. Everybody got hold of it. And then what Cory Booker did to kind of take on the president's theme, there is something all mixed up. They couldn't get the surrogates and the candidate together. Logos, very quickly. Both smart and articulate. No doubt about it. I think, reading all those books and thinking about it, that the logic of the positions is probably not going to be outcome determinative because there's a welter of factual evidence out there. It goes different directions. You really have to be an almost economics PhD to understand does Keynesian economics apply here or not. You got to be a raging wizard to cut through the competing welter of facts. Both sides are going to marshal, and they'll marshal effectively. They can both speak, and they're both smart. And at the end of the day, we're doing a lot of guesswork predictions on where the economy's going to go and a lot of other things. I think Logos is going to back out kind of the major here. I think we're more ethos, gut, and pathos, super gut. That's how I come out. Delivery could be the decider. I pay close attention to the acceptance speeches and the debates. To me, my guess is the election is so close. And the ethos, pathos, and logos are going to kind of cancel each other out. With very little logos making much difference. Probably people are going to pay pretty rapt attention to who they like the best, who delivers the best, and all that stuff. The governor he's got this problem, he's just got to solve it on delivery. He was asked if he was releasing taxes.
When you release yours, will you follow your father's example? Maybe. I don't know how many years I'll release. I'll take a look at what
He's got that nervous laugh issue out there, and he gets a little uptight and screams at the press too much. He's got the going in problem of perceived to be awkward, stiff, occasionally short fuse. And the president, a little of this, a little of that. My own view is that when the president's on his game, he intimidates me as a rhetorician, particularly in Q&A format. He's really good. People put him down because he's always reading the teleprompter, the way he does sometimes. What scares me about it is how many is Q&A answers, which was my whole career as a trial lawyer. He's very good at it. So, but the acceptance speeches will probably be a tie. You know, I think the debates may be, and I suppose this has happened before, it probably happened with Kennedy and Nixon. The debates probably were the difference in that 1%. And my own view is they probably will decide it again. So, how to handicap the win? I think the Aristotelian matrix gives a slight edge to the president. Because right now, ahead on Keith Ellison, a little behind on that, a little ahead on delivery, a little edge. Analyzing what all those books that I started off with say, probably, my bottom line is I fudge. I do not know the election. End of election. That's it. I know I'm taking past your witching hour. Any questions, any old? My publisher is living with me if I don't pass out on little sheets about a book. Subject of tongue tied American. So it's the first time I remember the way yeah.
I have a question about sort of the primary system and how we get to sort of a polarized view and it sort of goes super conservative, super liberal, try to satisfy itself for each case. Why is there some sort of amnesia with the American public about what goes on in these primaries? It's sort of
It seems to be so inevitable. I think more my own experience is that this time the pressing from the Republican side further and further right as they were trying to counter each other was more extreme than I remember. And that's another advantage the president had. He didn't have to go through that. He didn't have to tailor his position. Now he has to start tailoring toward Romney, but he didn't have to tailor toward others to his left or right in his party. He just got to be quiet. And Romney had to keep convincing people he was a serious conservative. This time, it sure had the effect of driving right. And I think you're probably right. It probably is most of the time to drive the two sides further apart. And then they try to come back to the middle, more to the middle, in the general election. I guess it's inherent in having to win in 25 different states. Different background people, different religious convictions, different that you get trapped. And why you don't get trapped? Why you don't go more to the middle? That's your question. Than going farther to one side. I'm not sure I know. It happened. We saw it happen. I think every commentator would agree that the primaries moved right for the Republicans, and the Democrats didn't have to undergo it. They got right. Yeah.
Romney would have came out and addressed the bullying incident right away.
Which one?
The bullying incident. Would that even be something the left would bring up now?
No. What our article said, he said, I did a lot of dumb things, as a matter of fact. I did do that. And I don't have a vivid memory of that episode. But I will say this, that if I did that, I'm not saying if somebody was concerned about it or hurt by it, I know I hurt them. And I'm very sorry about it. I think it goes away. That's what our article concluded. Just march right up to it and deal with it and take the responsibility. Is it tough?
Why did he think he was ignored?
Well, the first responders were from the staff. He may not have even been talking. He said, this sounds exaggerated, we don't believe it. He may not have even been on in the first responders. But how do these things happen? Just because he's off traveling, and, you know, the staff did what they did. And then he's kind of boxed, and I still think he should have said, 5 men have now said on the record they were there, it's haunted them. That haunts me. And they say I did it, I'm not going to tell you. That was horrible. I'm sorry about it. Then you take that, there it goes.
There's been significant political commentary on Herman Cain's campaign as being like a very bold form of just political satire, as a way to completely make fun of the system of the election. Do you think it was a form of political satire or just a really awful campaign?
I've heard that satire thing. I didn't in the end read it that way. I thought they were pretty serious, and remember they got some real traction. I think as they got more and more traction, they got pretty darn serious. We know that a lot of his supporters were fervent supporters, right? We know that. It got hot there for a while, really hot. And then it started to unglue. If they had thought of it as a satire at first, my view would be it merged, it melded into a not satirical shot. And then it went away. Because they just couldn't prepare it that fast. Not the old Olympiad, the illustrated figures, all the things you've got to know, that both the president and the governor do know. You're not going to see gaps like that.
As a trial lawyer, what kind of cases do you do typically?
What did I do?
Yeah.
I did two different kinds of cases. One, the insurance industry decided the really expensive cases they weren't going to pay for at all, so they all went to trial. Asbestos, Agent Orange, Exxon Valdez, environmental cleanup, all the hundreds of thousands of breast implant cases that generated huge liability. They were all multi-billion-dollar cases. And the insurance industry couldn't agree on how to divvy them up. Most companies would have maybe 15 insurers insuring them in a given year. One guy the first $5 million, the next 10, the next 40, the next 80. They'd fight with each other, so we couldn't settle it. Lucky for a trial lawyer, I got the trial back. So that's one thing. Second, a client of mine, a friend of mine from UVA Law School called up one day and said they had invented genetic engineering of cotton cord, multi-oodles of $1 billion worth. And they were having trouble. They wanted to establish who had the primary rights on it. DuPont was fighting, and a couple others. My client was Monsanto, who really had come up. It took them 35 years to figure out how to genetically code cotton and all that. And they were being attacked by those companies, and I tried those cases, genetic engineering cases. And those, and some football cases. I was an actual football cases, those three things. Other questions? Yes, Robert.
How do you think the Supreme Court case affecting corporate donations to super PACs is going to affect rhetoric in this campaign?
Well, it already certainly has. Good time, although I guess I would say right this minute, without the super PAC money, Romney would still have prevailed, I believe, in the Republican race. It may not have changed the outcome.
It kept it alive.
It changed how many negative ads could be put out there and all that stuff, but I'm not sure it really changed. But the worry is that it's just going to have a dramatic effect because of just how much money can come from so few entities, like never in the history of the country. So I worry about a distortion coming out of it. On which side, I don't know. I don't think we can prove yet that it's changed a lot of outcomes. But we may see that it will change the ultimate outcome, because one side's going to have more money. We know that. But they're both going to have so much money that I'm not sure I see that it's going to be outcome determinative. But it sure is a factor out there that political scientists will be looking at for the next 5 years, analyzing the answer to your question. I don't think we know yet how much fudging on that is. But yeah.
How much of an impact do you think the Supreme Court's decision within hopefully the next couple of weeks will come out?
Healthcare?
Yeah. How is that going to impact?
Another thing, people are just kicking that around right now. First of all, nobody's very confident about whether it's 5-4 against or 6-3 in favor. Those are the big betting odds.
Do you think each side's sort of vote if it passes and if it doesn't?
Yeah, everybody's analyzing that kind of stuff. There are just two sets of views. Even if they knock it down, people are going to increasingly figure out what they just lost. Pre-existing conditions, healthcare for kids just getting out of college, the under 26, that they're figured out and get mad about it. And that there may be a big backlash just against the Supreme Court coming out of Bush v. Gore, Lilly Ledbetter, that decision, strip searching for even a minor, all these have just come out. That the backlash, if they add one more to it may work to the advantage of the Democrats. People are trying to figure that out. I don't, nobody's got any idea. It makes the president look bad. I don't know. And again, that will be analyzed for 5 years after they do what they do. I've heard every possible side of that from prognosticators, and I haven't gotten comfortable with any sense of the answer yet.
All this mistakes and rhetoric you showed, is that just a lack of preparation?
I actually think a lot of it was, and I think it's a little different for each candidate. I think it's tiredness. I think it's lack of preparation. It's very strong religious views in some cases that just come exploding out of somebody in a fit. You just really don't want to say contraceptive. How do you get to that? Is that lack of preparation or just extreme religious feelings that have gone over to a direction that his wife said, quit saying that. In that case, I think he just kind of lost it. That was kind of, to my way of thinking, that was a little Howard Dean. The Romney stuff, you get the feeling, the reason I showed you the last piece was Megyn Kelly of Fox, giving him a chance to deal with it. He says, I'm not gaffing. I've made a lot of money, and I'm darn proud of it, and I'm not going to change. That sounds like it's coming from the heart. Rather than just a tired gaff.
That's like calling me for losing.
Yeah.
Just that passionate about as well.
Yeah. And I don't know why he needs to go there. We all went to it. That's fine. I don't think anybody's going to lose an election just because they're wealthy. John Kennedy was wealthy. FDR was wealthy. Jefferson when he started, but when he ended Washington, all wealthy. And a lot of other wealthy guys, nobody lost just because they had money. But he's rubbing noses in it that way and then refusing to say, take it back or do something. You've got to deal with that. I like to fire people and I don't care much about the poor. Are not good sentences to have out there. It's exactly what Megyn Kelly was trying to give him there. Why do you keep doing that? And he barks at it. I'm proud of what I have, but I'm not going to change it. He'll come off, I believe. I don't know any of this for a fact. I believe he's going to have to start smoothing that over. It doesn't feel very good. Any others?
Thank you very much.
Okay.